almost. Okay, great. So perfect. Okay, so we'll get started. Let me pull up. Perfect. Hi, everyone. My name is Luke. I'm the Communications and Development Manager at the Lavender Rights Project. I just want to start by expressing our gratitude for the overwhelming amount of support that we've received from our community, for our organization, and for our programs, particularly for the Washington Black Trans Task Force that we've received in the last month or so. More people are aware of our organization than ever before, which means more people can access the services and resources that we are providing. So thank you so much to all the organizations, businesses, artists, leaders, community members who have contributed and who have shared about our org. And because of you, we're able to better serve our community. So thank you so much. And what we're here today to talk about is share some exciting and important information about our organization's leadership. So with me are Morgan Mentzer, co-founder of the Lavender Rights Project, and Jaelynn Scott, previously our Director of People and Logistics, and we're so excited to announce our new Executive Director. Morgan and Jaelynn are here to share a bit more about the intention behind this transition in leadership and where the Lavender Rights Project is headed. I'm happy to be facilitating the conversation, and thank you so much for taking the time to share with our community.
Absolutely.
So Morgan, for folks who aren't familiar with LRP and our organization's history, can you talk about why and how LRP was founded?
Yeah, so in 2016, myself and one other attorney founded Lavender Rights Project because we felt there was a real lack of buy-in for legal services that were specifically trying to serve low-income queer and trans folks, specifically BIPOC communities, and we really wanted to create an organization that could meet the needs of the community and be buy-in for, meaning that the lived experience of those who are impacted have the most knowledge of how the laws are actually embodied and impacting our communities. So we started the organization. It was very small. The first year and a half had 2 attorneys, 1 staff member. It has rapidly grown, which I'm very proud of. And in part because there's such a need for the buy-in for approach, for recognizing that we cannot have models of social change that are dependent on folks that don't have access to the institutions that impact.
Great, awesome. And one thing I think, just for me as somebody who came to the organization, that I was really excited about is just how like transparent we are about our values. And I think a lot of the really awesome staff members that we're seeing at our organization now are able to connect so deeply because of those founding principles of the organization. Jaelynn, what led to this transition in leadership, and what inspires you about Lavender Rights Project?
Yeah, thanks so much. First of all, thank you everyone who's watching later and also who's with us right now. It's a really challenging time to take the helm of an organization, especially during the current insurrection and COVID and all of the things that are happening in our community, and the effects of decisions by the presidential administration on LGBTQ plus persons. It's just really important that our organization be at on the front lines of all that is happening and protecting employee rights, also looking at healthcare rights, and et cetera. The transition actually was planned in the fall. We began to have conversations. I stepped into the organization, and it was clear that we were in a developmental path moving away from a startup organization, really, and shifting into a more solid and mature phase of sort of a nonprofit organization. And Morgan specifically recruited me to come in and start laying some of those foundations of policies and procedures, and doing board management and et cetera. I think as the foundations began to be laid, the growth just continued to increase until we were at a point where it was clear that we needed more support in legal services and more overall administrative support in an executive director who didn't necessarily have legal work in their portfolio. And so it felt like the perfect transition stepping into leadership at this moment as we move from $250,000 to $1.5 million budget. That my particular area of passion and enjoyment is with laying out policies and procedures and building out infrastructure for organizations. So it was a natural transition that we planned. It happened exactly June 1st, a couple of days after we started to hear some of the news, and a couple of days after, you know, the protests really kicked into gear. I do think it's affirming that we made the right decision about lifting leadership of Black folk from the very beginning and before we were even asked to. And now that folks are asking to, we can provide a little leadership on how we do that and how we do it well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for that. Can both of you take some time to reflect on, like you were saying, in this specific place and time, what are some of the, I guess, hopes and dreams behind those intentions, behind the shift in leadership? So kind of, yeah, just expanding upon what you said, and particularly, what is that looking like in our organization right now?
Yeah, we have a lot of visioning that's happening in the organization, and I think this visioning work began with, you know, the staff that I'm so amazed by, both their commitment and their level of collaboration, which makes this just an easy choice to be a collaborator alongside, a comrade alongside our other employees in the work of this organization. I think in our visioning work that both began before I arrived, I think 9 months ago or so, and since has been the centering of the most marginalizing in our community. I mean, if we get very specific, we're talking about Black trans folk, and in general, really focusing on the missed opportunity that the LGBTQ plus movement has had in addressing the needs of people of color, Black, Indigenous people of color, and especially of Black folk. And so we're working to iron out anti-Blackness both in our organization and also be a model for the larger community of how to directly address anti-Blackness both internally and externally. We're working on expanding our services to Black folks specifically, and especially with the Black Trans Task Force. We took really the lead from the Transgender Law Center's Trans Agenda for Liberation, where, you know, we're thinking about, like, how do we actually protect this community that we want to serve? And they put out some clear guidelines. One of those is lift the voices of leadership of Black folk and Black trans folk. And you have to do it in a way that's smart, right? You have to do it in a way that folks are well supported and prepared. So, and you don't want to lift leadership of Black folk in organizations that are a mess. And so I think this work, this continued and ongoing work that we'll be doing forever on working through anti-Blackness in the organization also supports Black leadership, which is both my position and also the 6 members of our Black Trans Task Force. Our hope is to take direction from that group as an organization, not just in the work that they're doing with Black trans people, but as an entire organization, to let that inform our strategic plan moving forward in the future. Because, you know, you and I know, like, if you protect those who are most marginalized, you're protecting the entire LGBTQ plus community. If you can get it right for Black trans folk, you got it right for everybody.
Absolutely.
For all of us. So outside of that, we are expanding some services, including our family law services. We're working to diversify our income stream so that we can better offer free and low-cost services to those who need it, both, you know, non-marginalized and marginalized folk.
Awesome.
Another big part of our approach is how do we institute professional development inside of the LGBT two-spirit community? How do we take the knowledge and resources that you gain from working in large nonprofits, from fundraising, litigation, networking, and bring that and say, this is knowledge that should be based in the lived experience of those that are impacted, that there is a very severe disconnect between a lot of the nonprofit missions and actualization, because the knowledge is held so specifically often in the realm of white cis folk. And so what do we do to expand that? And the goal of our organization is really, we need to make it so everybody who is involved has access to professional development, that then by virtue of being by and for, that information is then brought into all realms of the community. So we take knowledge that we learn from experiences of running this nonprofit, and really try to say, how can we bring this back to the community?
And there's a certain amount of agreeing and sort of piggybacking of gatekeeping that happens in organizations, and especially in management and leadership of organizations, because the access for people who are and look like me, or the task force and others, the access both to, I mean, I am privileged, I have had a significant amount of access and I'm very thankful for that, but the access typically for us is pretty limited, if not available at all. And so it takes a shift in mindset. What is it that we value? Do we value the paper, right? Do we value that diploma? Do we value the certificates? Do we value the many, many years of experience? Or do we really truly think that lived experience does inform as much as those things? And how can we bridge the gap, since we live in a society that does require both? I think we're looking at how do we support attorneys in non-traditional paths, so that they don't have to enter an oppressive law school. We're thinking about how, if we do need to bring in someone who does professional work in the organization with years and years of access and experience, how we can also accompany that with a mentorship program for someone in our community who has not had access.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, thank you for sharing kind of some of the things that are on the horizon for LRP. As somebody who has had that access to higher education and consistent, stable employment, like my employment at LRP, it's been really exciting to get to work with folks in the Black Trans Task Force and other folks who are coming in on summer internships, and just working with community, even to share within our organization things that I learned in school. Like I'm working with folks on how to do graphic design using Canva, because you don't need to have a deep, thorough understanding of Illustrator and InDesign to be a graphic designer. And that is such a transferable skill. And so it's not even only within our organization teaching law and teaching rights to one another and using that experience to teach the community, but it's also what skills does each person bring in their position based on their experience. And as I help people learn to understand that, they're also teaching me things that I haven't had experience with, or that isn't my realm of expertise. And so it's a really great, I think, staff environment where we're teaching one another, and all of that is also with the community at mine and really at the crux of it. So it's been really exciting to see us grow as a staff member who's been with the organization for a couple of years. And we're all really excited about the direction that we're going into. So what are some of the best ways for community members to support Lavender Rights Project and the Washington Black Trans Task Force?
Yeah, I wanted to hit a couple of other areas of growth that we are moving into.
Great.
So we are branching into HR consulting for LGBTQ organizations, and this is related to your question, and offering trainings, human resource trainings, and possibly having us as your attorney on file for your human resource needs at varying levels from reviewing employee handbooks to actually being present for mediations and et cetera. We're working on LGBTQ competency training for professionals like other attorneys. and human resource professionals, specifically from the employment law perspective. The Black Trans Task Force, they're all working on two areas. They are doing direct services, so immediate need for Black trans people. That's the area of most of their work. And secondarily, they're trying to look at the problem of violence with Black trans people in general and thinking about the hierarchy of needs here. What are all the sort of basic needs that Black trans people need in order for protection and safety? And they're doing some advocacy around housing for Black trans people. With legal services, I'll go really quick. Legal services, our family law is growing, and our full service family law. So if you come in for a fee for service work with us, if you can afford to pay, that allows us to offer both family law, civil rights law, Fed benefits, unemployment, estate planning, and et cetera, to people who are lower income or no income. And so we do an amazing job at all of those. In all of those areas legally. And so we are well worth the money, but we also use some of those funds to subsidize our work, free and low cost work. And so I would say, as you see our programming, consider us, if you are an organizational leader, consider us for your HR representation. If you are a professional, consider us for your LGBTQ competency training, your CLEs, and et cetera. And if you see the Black Trans Task Force is need, or they're putting out both statements and ask, please support those both in voice and sharing on social media, and volunteering. We have a huge need for volunteering, both for our organization, specifically in our program, Black Trans Task Force. Bring your legal services needs. And finally, we're doing a expansion into Tacoma right before COVID hit. We opened our Tacoma office, we were ready to have an open house, and then we had to all go home. And so keep up with us with Tacoma, spread the word that we are in Tacoma, that we offer services in Tacoma. This is a great way for the community to be a part of and help grow Lavender Rights Project and get legal services and legal education to our community.
Awesome.
I think another way that people could also get involved is provide professional development trainings for Lavender Rights Project, like recognizing that we are a by and for organization. And if you have fundraising skills, if you have nonprofit management skills, if you have even legal skills that might be helpful, recognizing that bringing information to us and knowledge into the organization, again, will help us provide professional development that'll really reverberate across the community. So I encourage, in terms of volunteerism, a big ask is how do we share the information that is systemically kept off from specifically communities of color to bring professional development into the community.
Yeah, and with volunteering internally, we've been working really hard to put in place those structures for volunteers to come in. Even 2 months ago, the need looked different. And so we are getting all of that together so that we can really mobilize and utilize volunteers in a lot of different ways. Folks who have different experience, you know, we get volunteers who are attorneys, we get volunteers who are, you know, students. And so check out our volunteer page. We'll be updating it with these new volunteer opportunities pretty soon. And some other ways that you can support is by donating directly. So you can go to lavenderrightsproject.org/donate. And on that page, you can either donate to Lavender Rights Project, or you can donate directly to Washington Black Trans Task Force if you'd like to allocate those donations directly. And even if you can't donate, there's a lot of other ways that you can support our organization or help raise funds for us. So you can host your own fundraisers on platforms like Facebook. Facebook makes it really easy to host a fundraiser and do peer-to-peer fundraising. And we'll be releasing some other tools pretty soon for other ways to easily peer-to-peer fundraise. If you own a business, or if you have connections to folks who own businesses, we've had lots of businesses in the last month donate, you know, 10, 15, 20% of the sale of a specific item, or overall sales on a specific day. So that we can be really creative about it. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to take money that you during this time are likely utilizing to survive. But we can come together as a community to make sure that that support is there for each other. Other things that help is liking our page on Facebook, following us on Instagram, spreading the word about us through your networks, whether that's just sending a few emails and saying, hey, did you know about this? Connecting us to other community leaders that you might know. And leaving reviews on public platforms as well is another really good way to just help us be seen and noticed and accessible by folks who need our support and our help and our legal services. So I want to thank you both again for sharing with community in this way. And I hope that our audience is as excited as we all are for this shift in leadership. Are there any final thoughts that either of you would like to share before we head out?
I think it's just a fantastic time at Lavender Rights Project. I think the progressiveness of our staffing structure, the work that we're doing both internally and also externally, and as we grow, just watch this space. We're doing great work, and support us and join us and be a part of our community. And we'll be happy to have you. And I'm so honored and really excited to be in leadership and larger leadership in the LGBTQ+ community, both in Seattle and Washington State. And Tacoma. Don't leave out Tacoma.
Yeah, and I want to give a big thank you to Jaelynn to stepping into this role. This is a big role. The organization has grown exponentially since you've been here as co-directorship before you took on the ED role. And I just am so appreciative of your leadership. I think that I'm very excited to see where we can go. I think that a lot of our growth is directly connected to what Jaelynn has brought to the table. So thank you, Jaelynn, and thank you everybody for watching. This is also, I second, it is an exciting horizon for Lavender Rights Project. I think at this point, there's really no stopping where we can potentially go.
Awesome. If anybody has any questions, concerns, comments, you can always head over to our website. You can comment directly on any of our posts on Facebook as well and Instagram. If you go to lavenderrightsproject.org/contact, then there's a general form that you can fill out to make sure that a staff member gets back to you. And you can also check out everywhere else on our website, our legal advocacy. If you'd like to request a training, just go ahead and browse through our website, and we'll be updating that with new opportunities as they come. So thank you so much, everyone, and we'll see you soon.